This week in AI, the most important stories are not just about who has the smartest chatbot. They are about the infrastructure underneath the entire AI economy. The networks that connect GPUs, the data centers that keep models running, the voice systems that turn chatbots into live agents, the apps being built by people who may not know they are leaking sensitive data, and the countries that are adopting AI faster than everyone else. Put together, these stories show one thing clearly. AI is moving out of the demo phase and into the operating layer of the modern economy. The first story is the least flashy, but it may be one of the most important. OpenAI has released a new supercomputer networking protocol called MRC, or Multipath Reliable Connection. OpenAI says it developed MRC with AMD, Broadcom, Intel, Microsoft, and NVIDIA, and released it through the Open Compute project so the broader industry can use it. The point is simple. When you are training giant AI models, the GPUs are only useful if they can constantly move data between each other without delays, failures, or bottlenecks. One late transfer can leave expensive hardware sitting idle, and at this scale, idle GPUs are basically money on fire. MRC is designed to spread a single transfer across hundreds of network paths and route around failures in microseconds. That sounds very inside baseball, but it matters because the next phase of AI will not be limited only by model architecture. It will be limited by power, chips, networking, cooling, and reliability. OpenAI says publishing the spec is part of its compute strategy, because shared standards and infrastructure layers could help AI systems scale more efficiently across a broader partner ecosystem. That is a very polite way of saying, the AI race has become so big that even the plumbing needs a redesign. And that leads directly into Anthropic. Because while OpenAI is trying to improve the network layer, Anthropic is dealing with the other side of the same problem. Demand is exploding faster than compute can keep up. Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei said the company saw 80x year-over-year growth in revenue and usage in the first quarter. He joked that growth like that is too hard to handle, but behind the joke is a serious problem. When an AI company grows that fast, the bottleneck stops being marketing. It stops being product-market fit. It becomes raw infrastructure. According to Business Insider, Amodei said Anthropic had planned for growth anywhere from a little to 10x. But the reality came in far above that, stretching the company's computing resources thin. Anthropic also announced it secured 300 megawatts of new computing power at SpaceX's Colossus 1 data center, with the company saying the added capacity would let developers run Claude code for longer each day. That detail is important because Claude code appears to be one of the major drivers of Anthropic's growth. Developers are not just playing with AI. They are using it as part of their actual workday, which means demand compounds quickly. So the first two stories connect tightly. OpenAI is releasing networking technology because training and serving AI at massive scale requires more resilient GPU communication. Anthropic is scrambling for more compute because developer demand is growing faster than expected. These are not separate stories. They are two angles on the same reality. AI is becoming a utility, and utilities need infrastructure. The companies that win will not only be the ones with the best models, they will be the ones that can keep those models online, fast, affordable, and available when millions of people try to use them at the same time. Now, the third story shows what all that infrastructure is actually being used to build. OpenAI has launched 3 new real-time voice models for developers: GPT Real-Time 2, GPT Real-Time Translate, and GPT Real-Time Whisper. OpenAI says these models are meant to let developers build voice experiences that can reason, translate, transcribe, and take action while a conversation is happening. Reuters reported that GPT Real-Time 2 is designed for harder voice requests, tool calling, interruptions, and longer session context. GPT Real-Time Translate supports translation from more than 70 languages into 13 output languages, and GPT Real-Time Whisper provides live speech to text. This matters because voice is one of the places where AI starts to feel less like software and more like a person sitting across from you. Text chat can be slow and forgiving. Voice is not. When you are talking out loud, every delay feels awkward. Every misunderstanding feels bigger. Every pause reminds you that the system is still not quite human. So when OpenAI pushes real-time voice, translation, transcription, reasoning, and tool use into the same developer stack, it is not just improving a feature. It is trying to make AI agents usable in customer service, travel, education, meetings, accessibility, and live support. Reuters also reported early testers include Zillow, Priceline, and Deutsche Telekom, which gives a hint of where this is going commercially. But this is where the story starts to turn. Because the easier AI gets to use, the easier it gets to deploy badly. And that brings us to the security story. Thousands of vibe-coded apps exposing corporate and personal data on the open web. Wired reported on research from Red Access that examined web apps built with tools like Lovable, Replit, Base44, and Netlify. The researchers found more than 5,000 apps with little to no security or authentication, and around 40% of those exposed sensitive data, including medical information, financial data, corporate strategy documents, and customer conversation logs. This is the dark side of democratized software development. AI coding tools let people build apps quickly, even if they are not engineers. That is powerful. It also means people can accidentally publish internal tools, customer data, admin panels, and prototypes without understanding what is public and what is private. Some apps reportedly allowed access simply by knowing the URL. Others had barriers as weak as signing in with any email address. In some cases, researchers said they could gain administrative privileges or remove other administrators. That is not just a bug. That is an entire security model missing from the conversation. The companies involved pushed back, arguing that public access can be a user configuration choice, not necessarily a platform vulnerability. Replit's CEO said users can choose whether apps are public or private, while Lovable and Base44's parent company emphasized that creators are responsible for configuring security properly. That defense may be technically true, but it does not fully solve the problem. If a tool is designed to let non-technical users publish software in seconds, then security defaults and guardrails become part of the product experience. The more software gets created at machine speed, the more dangerous weak defaults become. And that leads into the fifth story: global AI adoption. Microsoft's AI Diffusion Report for Q1 2026 says global AI usage rose from 16.3% to 17.8% of the world's working-age population during the quarter. The UAE ranked first globally, with 70.1% of its working-age population using AI, while Singapore followed at 63.4%. The United States moved from 24th to 21st, reaching 31.3%. That is a fascinating contrast. The US may host many of the most important AI companies, but it is not the world leader in population-level adoption. The report also shows the adoption gap widening between the global north and global south. Microsoft says AI usage reached 27.5% in the global north versus 15.4% in the global south, with slower adoption tied to challenges around reliable electricity, internet access, and digital skills. That point matters because AI is often described as a universal technology, but access to it is not universal. The benefits will flow first to the places with infrastructure, education, connectivity, and institutional support. In other words, adoption is not just a technology story, it is a policy story. So when you connect all 5 stories, the pattern becomes clear. OpenAI's MRC release is about making GPU networks more reliable. Anthropic's 80x growth is about demand outpacing compute. OpenAI's voice models are about turning AI into live, real-time agents. The vibe coding leaks show what happens when software creation speeds up without security keeping pace. And Microsoft's Diffusion Report shows that adoption depends on infrastructure, language support, digital skills, and national strategy. The next phase of AI will not be defined only by benchmark scores. It will be defined by who can build the networks, secure the apps, power the data centers, support real-time interaction, and spread access beyond the people already closest to the technology. The chatbot era made AI visible. The infrastructure era is what makes it unavoidable. Stay sharp. Jane Sterling, Sterling Intelligence.